Riley Leonard, your outlook for him between now and Texas A&M. What are you thinking about him? And we've been talking about him for a while now, but what is your 60-second outlook on Riley Leonard right now?
When I think about Riley Leonard and I think about the A&M game, my mind jumps right back to Freeman and Denbrock. And the transactional piece to the free agent signing, the NIL deal, the competition, that's where my brain goes, is what is this going to look like? But ultimately, if you take out the money piece, Angeli's ahead of him. If you take that out, he's ahead of him in terms of like locker room type stuff. Just even the nuances of playing the quarterback position. Now, he might not have some of the same physical gifts or traits that a Riley Leonard does, but in terms of like just on paper, like quarterback stuff, he's going to be ahead. So then that goes back to come fall camp. If Riley's working in with the ones, it's going to make myself and maybe that locker room kind of raise an eyebrow. Be like, wait a minute, you know,
what's your 60-second outlook now on Steve Angeli? What do Notre Dame fans need to know about where Steve Angeli fits into this whole situation now after the Riley Leonard injury, which again, it's not the end of the world, but there is a pattern of issues here with this ankle and its durability.
Yeah, so when you say outlook, these are just thoughts that come to mind. If I'm Steve Angeli, I am trying to rid myself of that Brian Kelly conservative, and that's the guy that recruited him, right? You know, and he was under Kelly, under Reese, like some of that formative DNA of like that conservative quarterback play, you know, the check down guy, right? I'm trying to rid myself of that, and I'm trying to let him hang this spring. Show Coach Denbrock all that I can do versus I make the right decision. I want him to be able to like envision if this is a live fire game, high stakes, SEC athletes lined up on, playoff type scenario. I've got what it takes to win us a game. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what I think about with Angeli. Shut people like me up.
Hashtag why not Kenny, Mike? How does this impact Kenny Minchey, if at all? What's your outlook on him right now?
I still think he's got the most talented arm in the room. It's my understanding he's the fastest of the quarterbacks. It's my understanding he's kind of more of a gamer singer than he is like a practice guy. So like obvious example would be like, think of like a Brett Favre, right? Can roll out of bed and go play a game, but he's not going to be the most diligent practice player. And that would be my challenge to Kenny this spring, is like, spring is all about growing, competing, developing. That's a piece of your persona, a piece of your game, play style. You've got to get better in that practice scenario, but at the same time, also let them hang, show off that arm talent when the time arises. But Kenny probably, dude, hasn't been given much of a chance at up to this point in his Notre Dame career, and you really couldn't ask for much more than where he's at right now. But I will say, there's been talk about somebody leaving via the transfer portal, and that's why I was like, well, why can't Angeli leave, or why couldn't Carr leave? Shit, why couldn't Riley Leonard leave? Why is it always focused at Kenny? He would be the odd man out. So however this rep share gets broken down, that'll be curious, because there's a player decision to enter a portal, and there's also the coaches are having conversations. This isn't like player X wakes up one day and says, to hell with this, I'm jumping in the portal. There's conversations that take place. So I'm curious to see the Angeli Minchey onesie, twosie rep share, how that breaks down.
Okay. And then lastly, CJ Carr. Yeah, I mean, QB4 right now is a true freshman, but I'm curious your initial thoughts on him right now in this quarterback room moving forward.
Based on, remember, like they had the one practice and they went on spring break for 10 days or whatever. Based off of the coverage, it was like, we do have other quarterbacks on the roster not named CJ Carr. So I was like, that was kind of telling to me in terms of like how Notre Dame football, all of the different entities covered this thing, because there was a lot of CJ Carr talk. And like we love Colin Cowherd, and Colin Cowherd always talks about. I talk about what you guys are interested in, so I'm sure there's an element of just fans wanting to see CJ, but yeah, I mean, he looks great. Looks great. I still prefer Kenny's arm talent over CJ. And I just think of like, I mean, Kenny versus CJ, and I'm going to keep trying to weave Kenny into this thing. CJ is probably more polished in terms of like presentation value, you know, having been groomed and kind of grew up with the sport and around big time characters, et cetera. So, I mean, he's not going to have any missteps, and he's like a kind of a package deal, but we're going to find out how talented he is. But it's kind of a wait and see deal there.
Okay. All right. I like that, Mike.
I can't. Singer, last thought about CJ. I don't know how this thing's going to shake out, but I just I think about Deuce Knight way too much, right, dude? So it's
All
like
right.
if Carr were to ever become the guy early on ish, might it make it more difficult to transition to a Deuce? So that's kind of why I'm always like hashtag why not Kenny? If Kenny were to be your starter for a year or two, to me it makes it easier to roll into Deuce.